I was sitting at my desk, staring at a spreadsheet that refused to balance. It was a Tuesday morning, typically the quietest time in the finance department, but the numbers on my screen were screaming a discrepancy of $2 million. I rubbed my eyes, assuming I had made a data entry error. Suddenly, the double glass doors to the department smashed open against the walls. The sound was so loud that half the staff jumped out of their chairs. I spun around to see two uniformed police officers marching down the aisle, their hands resting on their holsters. Flanking them was Vargo, the owner of the company. Vargo was a flamboyant man who usually wore Italian suits and a fake smile, but today his face was twisted into a mask of righteous anger. He pointed a shaking finger directly at me. "That's him," Vargo shouted, his voice echoing off the walls. "That's the man who stole from us. He embezzled $2 million. Before I could even process the accusation, the officers were on me. "Stand up. Hands behind your back," one yelled. I was slammed against my desk, my cheek pressed against the cold laminate. "Vargo, what are you doing?" I gasped, looking for a punchline to a sick joke. But Vargo just stared down at me, his eyes cold and triumphant. "You betrayed this family, Miles," he spat. As the handcuffs clicked tight around my wrists in front of the entire staff, I realized this wasn't a mistake. It was a frame job. The holding cell smelled of bleach and old sweat. I sat on the metal bench, my suit jacket crumpled, staring at the concrete floor. Hours passed before my lawyer, a family friend named Mr. Henderson, arrived. He didn't look hopeful. He sat down on the other side of the glass partition and sighed. "It's bad, Miles," he said. Vargo didn't just call the cops. He handed them a silver platter. Henderson slid a folder against the glass. "They have digital logs, Miles. They show transfers from your specific login credentials moving money into an offshore shell company." "I didn't do that," I pleaded. "I know," Henderson said. "But the shell company is registered in your name. They have your social security number, your signature, everything. Vargo must have stolen your identity months ago to set this up." My stomach dropped. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. Vargo had been planning this for months. "What's the bail?" I asked. $500,000, Henderson said quietly. I put my head in my hands. We didn't have that kind of cash. My wife, Kara, would have to put our house up as collateral. If I couldn't prove my innocence, we wouldn't just lose my job, we would be homeless. Vargo was trying to bury me under a mountain of fabricated evidence before I could even take a breath. I made bail 3 days later. Walking out of the jail felt surreal. I was technically free, but I was suspended from work and barred from the premises. My phone had hundreds of missed calls, but one voicemail stood out. It was from Vargo. I sat in my car and played it, my hand shaking. "Miles," Vargo's voice was smooth, almost friendly. "I know you're out. Listen to me. Don't fight this. We have the logs. If you plead guilty, I'll ask the judge for leniency. You take 3 years in minimum security, and I'll make sure Kara and the kids are taken care of financially while you're away. But if you fight me, I'll spend every dime I have to bury you." I replayed the message. "I'll make sure your family is taken care of." It clicked. Vargo wasn't angry about the theft. He was desperate for a fall guy. I knew Vargo had a gambling problem. He frequented high-stakes poker games. The $2 million wasn't sitting in a shell company, it was gone. He had spent it. He needed to pin the loss on me to claim the insurance money or satisfy dangerous creditors. He wasn't punishing a thief. He was sacrificing me to save his own skin. I knew I was innocent, but knowing it and proving it were two different things. I was locked out of the company servers, and my laptop had been seized by evidence. But Vargo, for all his cunning, was technically illiterate. He had forgotten one thing: my personal cloud backup. I sat at my kitchen table at 2 a.m., logging into the remote backup service I used for my work files. Vargo hadn't revoked the token. I frantically searched through the archived emails, looking for anything that didn't match. I found it in the trash folder of a shared inbox Vargo thought he had scrubbed. It was a deleted email thread from 3 months ago. Vargo was communicating with a man named Silas, a known loan shark in the city. The email read, "I need more time. I'm moving the funds now to cover the VIG. The timestamp on the email matched the exact second the first transfer of money was moved from the company account. I stared at the screen. I had the motive. I knew the truth. But an email from a shared inbox wasn't enough. A defense attorney could argue anyone sent it. To clear my name and send Vargo to prison, I needed a confession. I needed to get Vargo to admit it out loud. I formulated a plan that relied on his massive ego. I called him back the next morning. I made sure to sound terrified. I let my voice crack. I forced myself to cry. "Vargo, please," I sobbed into the phone. "I can't go to jail. I can't leave my kids." Vargo was silent for a moment, letting me suffer. "Ideally, you should have thought of that before you stole from me, Miles." I know, I lied. "I'll do whatever you want. I'll sign the plea deal. I'll admit to everything. Just, please help my family." "Smart choice," Vargo said. "I need to pay my lawyer to set up the plea," I stammered. "Can I come in for an exit interview? I just need to sign the NDA and get the severance check you promised." "I'm broke, Vargo." Vargo hesitated, then chuckled. He loved the power. He loved seeing me beg. "Fine, come by at 5 p.m. Everyone will be gone. We'll wrap this up." He took the bait. He wanted to gloat. I had 6 hours before the meeting. I drove to a specialized spy shop downtown, wearing a hoodie to avoid being recognized. I walked up to the counter and told the clerk I needed the best audio recording equipment he had. "I need something discreet," I said. "And I need a backup." He sold me a tiny, high-fidelity wire that taped directly to my chest, hidden under my shirt. It looked like a medical patch. But I knew Vargo was paranoid. If he found a recording device, he would destroy it. "Is there a way to stream the audio?" I asked. "Yeah," the clerk said. "This unit connects via Bluetooth to your phone. If you have the app open, it live streams the audio directly to a private cloud server. Even if they smash the microphone, the file is already saved on the internet." I bought it. I went to my car and taped the device over my sternum. I tested the connection 3 times. Recording, uploading, saved. I wasn't just wearing a wire. I was wearing a broadcast station. I buttoned my shirt, checked my reflection, and drove to the office to meet my executioner. Walking back into the office building was the hardest thing I had ever done. The receptionist, a woman I had known for 10 years, looked at me with pure disgust and turned her chair around. As I walked down the hallway, former colleagues stopped talking and stared. I could hear whispers of "thief" and "traitor." Vargo had poisoned the well completely. He had told them I was the reason their bonuses were canceled this year. They didn't just see a criminal, they saw the man who stole their Christmas money. I kept my head down, acting the part of the defeated, broken man. I hunched my shoulders and shuffled my feet. I had to sell the performance. I reached the double oak doors of Vargo's office. I knocked weakly. "Enter." Vargo's voice boomed. I walked in. Vargo was sitting behind his massive desk, a bottle of expensive scotch open in front of him. Beside him was a stack of legal documents. He looked like a king on a throne. I was walking into the lion's den, armed with nothing but a microphone. Vargo gestured to the chair opposite him. He didn't offer a drink. He slid a thick document across the mahogany desk. It was a non-disclosure agreement, thicker than a novel. "Sign this," Vargo commanded. "It admits to the accounting error caused by your negligence and theft. It bars you from ever speaking about the company finances again. You sign." I cut the check for your lawyer, and I put in a good word with the DA. I picked up the pen, letting my hand shake visibly. I stared at the paper. This was the moment. I needed to trigger him. I needed him to explain why. "Vargo," I whispered, looking up at him with tear-filled eyes. "Why me? I was loyal to you for 10 years. I fixed the books in '08. I stayed late every night. Why did you do this to me?" Vargo stared at me. The silence stretched. I saw the contempt rising in his eyes. He couldn't help himself. Vargo took a long sip of scotch. The alcohol and his arrogance loosened his tongue. He leaned back, smiling a cruel, twisted smile. "Because you're boring, Miles," Vargo said. "You're a worker ant. You play by the rules. Nobody cares about the worker ant." "But the money," I pressed. "Where is it?" "I needed it," Vargo shrugged. "My extracurriculars got a little out of hand. The sharks were circling. I needed cash, Fast, to save the firm from my debts. He leaned forward, right into the sweet spot of the microphone hidden on my chest. Who are they going to believe, Miles? The owner who was on the cover of Forbes last month? Or the boring accountant with the suspiciously complex bank transfers? He laughed. I stole it, I spent it, and you're going to pay for it because that's how the world works. That's capitalism. The big fish eats the little fish. My heart hammered against the wire. I stole it. Those 3 words were my freedom. I looked down at the paper. I pretended to sign it, scribbling a fake signature. I stood up to leave, acting eager to get out of there. I'm leaving the check with my lawyer, Vargo said. Now get out. I turned toward the door. Wait, Vargo said sharply. I froze. Vargo stood up. His eyes narrowed. You're sweating, Miles. You're sweating a lot. He pressed a button on his desk. The large security guard who stood outside the door walked in. Pat him down, Vargo ordered. I don't trust rats. Make sure he isn't recording this. Panic flooded my veins. The guard grabbed me. I tried to pull away, but he was too strong. He patted my waist, then moved up to my chest. He felt the hard plastic lump. He's wired, the guard shouted. He ripped my shirt open. The tape tore off my skin. The black device was exposed. Vargo's face turned a violent shade of purple. He marched over, ripped the device off my chest, and smashed it onto the hardwood floor. He stomped on it with his heel until it was nothing but plastic shards and wires. Vargo stood over the broken pieces of the recorder, breathing heavily. He looked up at me and laughed, a loud, maniacal sound. Nice try, Miles, he sneered. You almost had me, but almost doesn't count. You have nothing now, no recording, no leverage, just a broken toy. He pointed to the door. Get him out of here. And if he comes back, break his legs. The guard grabbed me by the collar and threw me out of the office, dragging me down the hall and tossing me onto the sidewalk outside the building. I stumbled to my car, my shirt ripped, my chest stinging from the tape. I sat in the driver's seat and locked the doors. My hands were shaking uncontrollably. I pulled my phone out of my pocket. I opened the recording app. The status bar at the top was green. It read, Upload complete. File saved to cloud. Vargo had destroyed the microphone. He had destroyed the transmitter. But he hadn't destroyed the data. The confession was sitting safely on a server in Virginia. I started the car. I wasn't going home. I drove straight to the police station. I didn't wait for my lawyer. I walked up to the front desk, looking disheveled, and asked for Detective Miller, the officer who had arrested me in Chapter 1. Miller came out, looking annoyed. You're out on bail, Miles. You shouldn't be here. I have new evidence, I said. I have a confession. I sat in the interrogation room and played the audio file from my phone. The sound quality was crystal clear. I stole it, I spent it, and you're going to pay for it. That's capitalism. Miller listened. His expression changed from annoyance to shock, and then to anger. He played it back a second time. He admitted to the framing, Miller muttered. He admitted to the theft. Is it enough? I asked. It's more than enough for a search warrant, Miller said, standing up. But we need to move fast. If he realizes the file uploaded, he's going to try to liquidate everything and run. The next morning, Vargo sat in his office, feeling invincible. He logged into the company's main banking portal. He planned to transfer the remaining $500,000 in the operating account to a bank in the Cayman Islands, just in case. He typed in the transfer amount. He hit submit. A red box popped up on the screen. Transaction failed. Account frozen by court order. Vargo frowned. He tried again. Failed. He called the bank, screaming at the manager. Why is my money locked? I'm sorry, sir, the manager said. We received a freeze order from the district attorney's office regarding an active fraud investigation. Vargo dropped the phone. The color drained from his face. He realized the broken man hadn't just tried to record him, he had succeeded. The trap had snapped shut. The police were moving, but Vargo's high-priced lawyers were already filing motions to stall the arrest warrant. They claimed the recording was illegally obtained and doctored. They were buying him time to destroy physical evidence. I couldn't let him wiggle out of this. I decided to try the court of public opinion. I sent a snippet of the audio file to the local news station's investigative team. That evening, the 6 p.m. news opened with a bombshell report. Local business owner caught on tape admitting to framing employee. They played the clip. Who were they going to believe? The owner on the cover of Forbes. I stole it. The entire city heard Vargo's true voice. There was no spinning this. The lawyers could argue technicalities in court, but they couldn't unring the bell of public perception. The next morning, the office was in chaos. The employees who had glared at me in Chapter 7 had all watched the news. They listened to the recording. They heard Vargo admit that he stole the money to pay gambling debts. They realized that the budget cuts and the canceled bonuses weren't my fault. Vargo had stolen their money. The mood shifted from confusion to rage. When Vargo pulled into the parking lot, his tires were slashed. He walked into the building to find it empty. The staff had staged a walkout. Every accountant, every sales rep, every receptionist was standing in the parking lot with signs. Vargo walked through the empty halls. The phones were ringing off the hook with angry clients, and there was no one to answer them. He was the king of a ghost town. With his accounts frozen and his business halted, Vargo had a bigger problem than the police. The loan sharks. The man named Silas, whom I had seen in the emails, didn't care about court orders or police investigations. He wanted his money. That night, 2 black SUVs pulled up to the gate of Vargo's mansion. Vargo watched on his security cameras as men in suits climbed over his gate. He called the police, begging for protection. The dispatcher told him officers were on the way, but they were coming to arrest him, not guard him. Vargo realized the safest place for him was a jail cell. He had played a dangerous game, and now both sides of the law were coming for him. Vargo panicked. He knew the police were coming. He decided to try one last, desperate frame job. He grabbed a bag of cash he had hidden in a wall safe, cash that wasn't frozen. He drove to the office at 2 a.m., entering through the back door. He planned to plant the cash in my old desk drawer. If the police found the physical money in my desk, he could argue that the recording was a deep fake and that I was the real thief. He crept through the dark office, flashlight in hand. He reached my cubicle and started stuffing the money into the bottom drawer. He didn't know that on the day I was arrested, Chapter 1, I had left a small, battery-operated motion sensor camera on my shelf. It was meant to catch people stealing my lunch. It was still running. I was sleeping at my sister's house when my phone buzzed. Motion detected. Office desk. I woke up and opened the app. I watched a live video feed of Vargo, sweating and frantic, planting stacks of $100 bills in my drawer. It was pathetic. It was undeniable. I hit the record button. Then I texted the link directly to Detective Miller. He's at the office. He's tampering with a crime scene right now. Go. Vargo was just finishing up when he saw the blue and red lights flashing against the office windows. He froze. He tried to run for the back exit, but the building was surrounded. This time, there were no lawyers to stall. There were no motions to file. He was caught in the act of obstruction of justice and evidence tampering. The police kicked down the doors. They found Vargo standing by my desk, holding the bag of cash he claimed I had stolen. Put the bag down, Miller shouted. Vargo dropped the money. He fell to his knees, sobbing. The arrogance was gone. I drove to the office and watched from the parking lot. It was a mirror image of Chapter 1. 2 officers marched Vargo out of the building. His hands were cuffed behind his back. The staff, who had been protesting outside, cheered. Vargo looked wild. He saw me standing by my car. He started screaming. He set me up. That's my money. He planned this. But nobody was listening. The worker ant was standing free, and the king was being shoved into the back of a squad car. The irony was perfect. He was arrested in the exact same spot where he had framed me for the crimes he had committed. Vargo's lawyer visited him in jail. He looked at the evidence. The wiretap audio, the emails to the loan shark, and the video of him planting the cash. You're done, Vargo, the lawyer said. If we go to trial, you're looking at 20 years. What do I do? Vargo asked, terrified. We beg for a plea deal, the lawyer said. We give them everything, and frankly, you want to be in prison. Those loan sharks can't get you in federal custody. Vargo agreed. He pleaded guilty to grand larceny, fraud, and embezzlement. He traded his freedom for safety from the criminals he had borrowed from. The criminal case was over, but I wasn't finished. I filed a civil lawsuit against Vargo for defamation, emotional distress, and malicious prosecution. Since Vargo had already pleaded guilty in criminal court, the civil suit was a formality. It was a slam dunk. The judge looked at the damages Vargo had caused, my reputation, my trauma, my legal fees. The court ruled in my favor. They awarded me damages equal to Vargo's remaining assets. Since his cash was gone, the court awarded me the rights to his majority share in the company. I wasn't just cleared, I was now the owner of the firm that fired me. The day I walked back into the office, the atmosphere was electric. The staff was waiting in the lobby. They looked nervous, unsure if I would fire them for doubting me. I walked to the center of the room and stood on a chair. Vargo is gone, I announced. The assets have been seized. The bonuses he stole from you will be paid out from his liquidated estate by the end of the month. There was a moment of silence, and then the room erupted in applause. People were crying. They came up to shake my hand. We get back to work, I said. But we do it honestly this time. 6 months later, I drove to the state penitentiary. I sat in the visitation room behind the glass partition. Vargo walked in. He looked terrible. He had lost weight, and his hair was gray. The arrogance was completely gone. He picked up the phone. You ruined me, he whispered. No, Vargo, I said calmly. You ruined yourself. You got greedy. I just held up a mirror. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the folded copy of the NDA he had tried to make me sign in Chapter 8. I pressed it against the glass. I didn't sign it, I said. And I never will. I hung up the phone and walked away, leaving him staring at the paper that represented his downfall. I sat in the owner's office, my office. The room had been redecorated. Vargo's gaudy portraits were gone. On the desk sat a framed photo of Kara and my kids. I opened my laptop. I pulled up the company spreadsheet, the same one from Chapter 1 that hadn't balanced. I typed in the recovered funds. I adjusted the columns. The numbers turned from red to black. The spreadsheet balanced perfectly. I smiled, closed the laptop, and looked out the window. The company was safe. My name was clear, and the man who tried to break me was sitting in a cell I built for him. Justice was served.